The ice world was silent except for the endless howl of the wind. It was not the kind of place where anyone would choose to live. But Ethan Cole did not have much choice. He was assigned here by the United Earth Council to maintain a small outpost, part of the larger plan to test terraforming machines on extreme worlds. Ethan had been alone for almost 4 months. His only companions were the hum of the heating units, the blinking lights of his machines, and the wide, empty horizon of ice. The sky was pale blue during the day and black with endless stars at night. Sometimes the auroras danced across the heavens, green and purple curtains that waved slowly in silence. They were beautiful, but they only reminded him how small he was on this frozen planet. Every day, Ethan checked the machines, repaired cables that froze too quickly, and reported data back to Earth. He tried to keep himself busy, but the silence always returned. He had grown used to speaking to himself just to hear a human voice. That night the storm began without warning. The wind slammed against the walls of his shelter, and ice particles lashed against the windows like tiny blades. Ethan sat by the console drinking lukewarm coffee when an alarm flashed across the screen. Unidentified life form detected, 100 meters east of the habitat. Ethan froze. His heart raced. The system rarely gave false alarms, and nothing lived on this frozen rock. At least nothing Earth scientists had recorded. He pulled on his thermal suit, grabbed a scanner, and stepped outside into the blizzard. The cold hit him like a hammer. The wind screamed in his ears, and his breath froze against the inside of his visor. He forced his way through the snow, guided by the blinking signal on his wrist scanner, and then he saw it. At first, it looked like a strange shape in the snow, glowing faintly with a pale blue light. As he got closer, he realized it was not ice or machinery. It was someone. A figure lay half buried in the snow, trembling, weak, almost fading. The being's skin was translucent like crystal. Beneath the surface, soft streams of light pulsed slowly, like veins carrying energy instead of blood. She was humanoid in shape, with slender arms and long fingers, but her body was thin, fragile, almost too delicate for this brutal world. Ethan knelt beside her. His scanner beeped wildly. Her body temperature was dropping fast. She was dying. Her eyes flickered open, glowing faintly with silver light. Her lips moved, but the sound was weak, almost a whisper lost in the storm. Ethan leaned closer and heard a broken voice. "Warmth. I need warmth." Without thinking, Ethan lifted her into his arms. Her body was cold, far colder than the ice around her. It was like holding glass that had been left in the snow. She was light, too light, as if she was made of fragile crystal instead of flesh. He carried her back to the habitat, fighting the wind with every step. By the time he sealed the airlock and stepped inside, his arms were numb and his chest burned with the effort. Inside, the heating systems roared against the storm. Ethan laid her gently on the couch, pulling blankets around her. But the blankets did little. Her glowing skin flickered like a fading light bulb. She whispered again, barely able to move her lips. "Please, warmth." Ethan hesitated only a moment. He pulled off his gloves and placed his hands on hers. His warmth spread into her cold skin. Her body glowed a little brighter, faint streams of light flowing again under the crystal surface. Her eyes fluttered open, and for the first time, Ethan saw them clearly. They were silver with tiny sparks inside, like stars reflected in a still pond. She looked at him, weak but alive. "You, warm," she whispered. Ethan swallowed hard. He had no idea who or what she was. An alien, clearly, but she was alive and she needed him. He pulled another blanket around her and stayed by her side, letting her hold his hand for warmth. Hours passed. The storm outside did not stop, but inside the strange visitor slowly grew stronger. Her glow brightened and her breathing steadied. She finally spoke again, her voice still soft but clearer now. "I am Leora." Ethan nodded slowly. "I'm Ethan. You almost froze out there." Her lips curved faintly, though it was not quite a human smile. "This world, I'm too cold. My vessel, broken. I was searching for shelter." "You found the wrong planet," Ethan muttered, though he kept his voice gentle. She tilted her head. "I found you." Those words made Ethan pause. For months he had been alone, forgotten by the rest of humanity, and now suddenly he was sitting beside a being from the stars, her hand in his, whispering that she needed his warmth. He did not sleep that night. Leora needed constant contact to keep her body temperature stable. Every time he tried to pull his hand away, her glow dimmed and her breathing slowed. So he stayed, watching her rest, listening to the storm batter the walls. In the morning, she was stronger. She sat up slowly, her movements graceful but unsteady. The light under her skin pulsed brighter now, like flowing rivers of energy. She studied the habitat with curious eyes, tilting her head at every piece of human technology. "This is your shelter," she said softly. "So small, but warm." "It keeps me alive," Ethan replied. She looked at him again, those silver eyes steady. "And now, it keeps me alive too." Ethan felt a strange weight in her words. He realized she truly meant it. Without him, she would have died in the snow. As the day went on, Ethan learned more. Leora explained that her people were crystalline beings who absorbed energy from heat and light. Their vessels carried special chambers filled with warmth to keep them alive during travel. But when her vessel was damaged in the storm, her chamber failed. She had wandered outside searching for a source of warmth until she collapsed. Ethan listened in silence. He wanted to ask 1,000 questions about her world, her people, her technology. But he held back. Right now she needed rest more than curiosity. That night the storm returned, louder than before. The walls shook, and the temperature inside the shelter dropped dangerously low. Ethan boosted the heating units, but they struggled against the cold. He pulled on an extra jacket, but Leora began to shiver again, her glow flickering. She looked at him with tired eyes. "The blankets." "Not enough. I need your warmth again." Ethan hesitated only a moment. He pulled off his heavy jacket and lay down beside her, wrapping the blankets around them both. Her body pressed close to his, cold at first, then slowly warming as she absorbed his heat. She whispered softly, almost like a breath against the air. "You are warm. So warm. It saves me." Ethan closed his eyes. He could feel her fragile body trembling against him, could see her glow brightening slowly. For the first time in months, he was not alone in the endless cold. Someone else needed him. Not for data reports or machine repairs, but for life itself. And deep inside, he felt a strange thought growing. Maybe this frozen planet was not so empty after all. Maybe fate had brought Leora here for a reason. As the storm howled outside, Ethan held her closer. She whispered again, her voice drifting into sleep. "Do not let go. I need your warmth." Ethan stared at the ceiling, listening to her steady breathing, feeling her glow against his chest. The loneliness that had haunted him for months seemed to fade, replaced by something unexpected. Connection. The storm lasted for 3 long days. The wind screamed outside and the shelter groaned under the weight of the ice. Ethan had never seen weather this violent before. Usually the storms came and went within hours, but this one seemed determined to bury his little habitat. Inside, the heaters worked at full power, but the temperature still dropped. Ethan had to ration power carefully. If the generators burned out, both he and Leora would be lost. Leora spent most of the time lying under blankets. Her glowing skin dimmed every time the room grew colder. She pressed close to Ethan often, her hands on his arms or his chest, soaking in his warmth. At first it felt awkward. He had never imagined being a living heater for an alien. But he quickly realized it was the only way to keep her alive. The first morning after the storm began, she looked at him and whispered, "You stay near me. If you go far, I weaken." Ethan sighed but nodded. "Then I guess I'm stuck with you." Her silver eyes studied him for a long moment. Then she tilted her head slightly, the closest thing she had to a smile. "I could say the same." During those storm days they talked more. Leora told him about her people, the Seralith, a crystalline race who lived on a world of bright suns and glowing heat rivers. To her, this frozen planet was like a tomb. "Our homes," she said softly one evening, her voice faint but steady, "are built around the flame wells. Streams of living fire rise from the ground. We gather near them and our cities shine like stars. To be far from warmth, it is to fade." Ethan listened carefully, picturing cities of crystal glowing in firelight. It sounded like something out of a dream. He told her about Earth in return, about green forests, blue oceans, and cities full of people. She seemed fascinated, leaning closer as he described simple things like rain, music, and children laughing. "So much warmth," she whispered. "Not only from your star, from each other." Her words stayed with him. He realized she understood more than just physical heat. She was beginning to see the way humans shared warmth through kindness, through bonds, through community. By the third day, Ethan was exhausted. Sharing his body heat with Leora meant he slept little. Whenever he tried to rest away from her, she would shiver and weaken. He had to hold her close through most of the nights, listening to the storm pound the walls. One night, when the storm reached its peak, she slid under the blankets again, whispering the words she had spoken before. "Do not let go. I need your warmth." Ethan nodded silently. He was too tired to argue. But inside, he felt something change. It was not just duty anymore. He wanted her to survive. He wanted to keep her safe. When the storm finally passed, Ethan opened the airlock and stepped outside. The world was unrecognizable. The snow had piled up into mountains and the machines were half buried. He groaned at the sight of broken towers and twisted cables. "This will take weeks to fix," he muttered. Leora followed him out, wrapped in a heavy thermal suit he had adjusted for her size. She looked strange in human gear, but at least it protected her fragile body from the worst of the cold. She placed her crystal-like hand on one of the damaged machines. Streams of light moved under her skin, and the scanner in Ethan's hand beeped. The machine hummed faintly, then sputtered back to life. Ethan stared in shock. "You just powered it up?" Leora nodded slowly. "Our bodies carry energy. Heat flows through us. I can share some, but not much. I still need your warmth." Ethan laughed for the first time in weeks. "Well, looks like I finally have a coworker out here." The following days were filled with hard work. Ethan repaired broken cables, while Leora used her strange abilities to boost the machines temporarily. She moved slowly and tired easily, but she insisted on helping. In return, Ethan cooked for both of them. She could not eat human food, but she absorbed the heat from his boiling water and steaming meals. She would hold her hands over the cup, watching the steam rise, her glow brightening as if she were drinking the warmth itself. Ethan began to notice her small habits. She tilted her head when confused, like a bird. She traced the edges of objects with her long fingers, studying their shapes, and whenever she grew weak, she would drift toward him without a word, sliding closer until their shoulders touched. At first, he thought it was simply survival, but the more it happened, the more he felt something else in her actions. Not only need, but trust. One night, as they sat together in the dim light of the shelter, she spoke again. "In my people's eyes," she said softly, "humans are fragile, too soft for the stars. They say your kind will not last long." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "That sounds familiar. Back on Earth, some people used to say the same about our ancestors, that we couldn't cross the oceans or climb mountains or survive deserts. But we did." Leora studied him quietly. "And you survive here, alone, in this endless ice." "Not alone anymore," Ethan said before he could stop himself. Her silver eyes widened slightly. She lowered her gaze, but a soft glow pulsed brighter beneath her skin, as if she had absorbed not only warmth but his words. The days grew into a strange routine. They worked together in the daylight, spoke softly in the evenings, and shared blankets at night. Every time she slid closer, whispering for warmth, Ethan felt less like a caretaker and more like a partner, but danger was never far. One afternoon, as they repaired a frozen generator, the ground shook violently. A deep cracking sound split the air. Ethan shouted, "Icequake, move!" The ground split open, sending shards of ice flying. Ethan grabbed Leora's arm and pulled her back as a fissure opened where they had been standing. A massive shadow moved below the ice, something alive beneath the frozen crust. "What was that?" Ethan gasped. Leora's glow dimmed in fear. "This world, not empty. Some creatures live even in the cold. Predators." The ground trembled again, but then it grew still. Whatever was beneath the ice had moved on. Ethan and Leora hurried back to the shelter, shaken but alive. That night, as she pressed close for warmth, she whispered, "You saved me." Ethan shook his head. "We saved each other." The uneasy coexistence grew stronger. Ethan learned to read the subtle shifts in her glow, the way it brightened when she was curious, dimmed when afraid, or pulsed when she was near him. She in turn learned his expressions, asking questions about the strange way his face moved when he smiled or frowned. "You are very expressive," she said once. "Your face tells more than your words," Ethan chuckled. "That's a human thing. We're not made of crystal. We need other ways to show what we feel." She looked at him for a long time, then said softly, "Your warmth shows me enough." Weeks passed. The machines were slowly repaired, The generators stabilized and Ethan sent updated reports to Earth. But part of him no longer cared about the mission. His focus had shifted. Every day he woke up, his first thought was not about Data, but about Leora, whether she was strong enough, whether she would keep glowing, whether she would still whisper for his warmth at night. He had come to this frozen world expecting silence, emptiness, and loneliness. Instead, he had found a fragile being who depended on him to survive, and who gave him something he had not expected in return. Not just company, not just trust, but the beginning of something deeper, something that neither storms nor cold nor even the emptiness of space could easily take away. The days passed slowly on the frozen planet. Each sunrise looked the same, pale light reflecting off endless sheets of ice, winds sweeping across the horizon, and the silence of a world that seemed empty, yet dangerous. For Ethan, life had become a strange rhythm, repairing machines, sending reports, cooking simple meals, and making sure Leora had enough warmth to survive. But every day also brought new challenges, repairs and discoveries. One morning, Ethan woke to find the power grid flickering. The lights inside the habitat dimmed and brightened like a failing lantern. He cursed under his breath, pulling on his thermal suit. "The generators again," he muttered. Leora sat up, her silver eyes watching him. "You need help." Ethan shook his head. "You're still weak, rest." But Leora slowly stood, wrapping the thermal suit around her crystalline frame. "We work together. Alone you cannot last. Together, we can." Ethan stared at her for a moment, then nodded. He could see determination in her glowing skin. Outside, they struggled through deep snow to reach the generator towers. The machines were coated with thick ice, their cables stretched and brittle. Ethan used his tools to scrape and repair, while Leora pressed her glowing hands against frozen parts. The machines hummed as her heat energy flowed into them. Ethan glanced at her in amazement. "You're like a living battery." She tilted her head. "And you are a living fire. Without you, my glow fades. Without me, your machines die. We need each other." Her words carried no hesitation. Ethan felt them sink deep into his chest. He had never worked with someone so unlike him, yet so close in spirit. The predator beneath the ice 2 nights later. As they rested inside, the ground trembled again. Ethan sat up sharply. "Another ice quake?" Leora shook her head. "Not quake, creature." Before Ethan could ask, a deep groan echoed beneath the shelter. The floor vibrated as if something massive was moving under the ice. Leora's glow dimmed. "It hunts warmth," she whispered. Ethan froze. "It can sense us?" She nodded. "It feels the heat. We must stay quiet, still." The groan grew louder. The walls creaked. Ethan held his breath, his heart pounding. Leora slid closer to him under the blankets, trembling. For a long, terrifying minute, the sound circled the shelter. Then slowly it faded into the distance. Ethan let out a shaky breath. "So the planet isn't as empty as we thought," Leora whispered. "The cold hides many things. Some wait for centuries, feeding on heat when it comes. We must be careful." From that night onward, Ethan kept weapons ready. A flare gun, a cutting torch, even makeshift spears he carved from metal rods. He had no idea if they would work against a beast under the ice, but he refused to sit helpless. Trust in the cold. The more dangers they faced, the more Ethan and Leora relied on each other. She slid into his sheets every night, whispering softly, "I need your warmth." At first it had been survival. Now it felt like something more, a connection neither of them could ignore. One evening, as the storm outside screamed, Leora pressed close to him and whispered, "When I first saw you, I thought humans were too soft, too weak, but now, I see your strength." Ethan chuckled tiredly. "Strength? I'm just patching machines and keeping a heater alive." She shook her head. "Not the machines, you. Alone in the cold, and still you endure. You do not give up. That is strength." Her silver eyes glowed brighter as she said it. Ethan turned away, but inside, warmth spread that had nothing to do with body heat. A failing signal weeks later, while repairing the antenna, Ethan discovered a faint signal, static, mixed with strange tones. He rushed inside, adjusting the receiver. Leora leaned close, listening. Her eyes widened. "That is my people." A search signal. Ethan froze. "Your people are looking for you?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, they must be near the system. But the signal is weak. My vessel, I must repair it fully so they can find me." Ethan felt a twist in his chest. If her people rescued her, she would leave. The thought of the habitat without her, silent again, empty, made him feel colder than the ice outside. But he pushed the feeling aside. "Then we'll fix your ship," he said firmly. Leora touched his arm gently. "You would help me leave?" Ethan met her gaze. "I'd help you survive. That's what matters." Her glow pulsed brightly as if his words lit something inside her. The ship's wreck, the wreck of Leora's vessel, lay half buried under ice 2 kilometers away. It took them half a day to reach it, pulling supplies on a sled. The structure looked alien. Smooth, curved metal with faint patterns glowing along the hull. Cracks split its surface, and ice had swallowed parts of it whole. Inside, the ship was cold and silent. Leora touched the walls gently, her glow flowing into the metal. Lights flickered weakly, revealing elegant corridors and shattered control panels. "This was my heart," she whispered. "Now it is broken." Ethan knelt by the main console, pulling out his tools. "Then let's fix it." For days, they worked side by side. Leora guided him through alien systems while Ethan improvised with human tools and parts. She marveled at his creativity, how he turned scraps into working solutions. "Your people," she said one evening, "are builders. Even with little, you create much," Ethan shrugged. "It's how we survive. When we don't have what we need, we make it." She tilted her head. "That is beautiful." Attack of the Predator one night as they camped near the wreck, the ground shook violently. A massive crack split the ice, and from it rose a monstrous shape. The Predator was unlike anything Ethan had seen. Its body was long and armored with frozen plates, its many limbs scraping the ice. Its mouth glowed with heat as it exhaled frost. It had been following the warmth of their work. Ethan shouted, pulling Leora behind him. "Run!" The beast lunged, smashing ice with its limbs. Ethan fired a flare gun into its face. The red flame exploded, making the creature shriek and recoil. Leora raised her glowing hands, sending waves of heat at the monster, but the effort made her stagger. "Go," she gasped. Ethan grabbed her arm, dragging her across the ice. The creature followed, tearing through the frozen ground. They reached the ship's broken corridor, diving inside just as the beast slammed against the hull. Metal groaned but held. Breathing hard, Ethan pulled Leora close. Her glow was faint, almost gone. "You gave too much energy," he said. She whispered weakly. "I could not let it take you." Ethan held her tightly, anger burning in his chest. "We're going to survive this. Together. I won't let anything take you." Bonds forged in ice after the attack, they reinforced the ship as a shelter. Ethan crafted traps with wires and explosives, while Leora used her energy sparingly to keep systems alive. Their teamwork grew stronger, each step guided by unspoken trust. At night, she still whispered for his warmth, sliding close under the blankets. But her words carried a new tone now, less desperation, more comfort. One evening, as snow drifted quietly outside, she whispered, "Ethan, I once believed only my people could give light. But you give light too, in your way." Ethan looked at her glowing eyes, then smiled faintly. Maybe we're not so different after all. For the first time since he arrived on this frozen world, Ethan felt like he belonged, not just to the mission, not just to survival, but to something greater. They were no longer two strangers clinging to life. They were partners facing the cold together, building something neither of them had expected. And as the weak signal from the stars continued to call faintly in the background, Ethan knew their greatest challenges and choices were still to come. The frozen world gave no rest. Even after the Predator attack, Ethan and Leora had little time to breathe. The storm seasons were returning, darker and stronger than before. The faint signal from space grew louder each day, but so did the dangers around them. Every morning, Ethan woke up with Leora pressed close beside him under the blankets, her faint glow warming against his chest. At first it had been strange, then necessary, and now it had become part of life. She always whispered the same words in the quiet hours. "Do not let go. I need your warmth." And every time Ethan answered in his heart, "I will not." A stronger signal one morning, while adjusting the ship's antenna, the signal cleared into words. Leora's silver eyes widened as she listened. "They are near," she whispered. "My people. A rescue vessel will come, perhaps within weeks." Ethan stared at the console. Weeks. He should have felt relieved. After all, this meant survival. Not only for Leora, but perhaps for him too. Her people could help repair his outpost, maybe even bring him home, but instead a cold weight settled in his chest. If her people came, she would leave. She would return to her world of glowing cities and flame wells, and he would remain here, alone again, with nothing but machines and empty skies. Leora seemed to notice his silence. She placed her glowing hand on his arm. "This is good news, Ethan. I will speak to them of you. I will tell them how you saved me." Ethan forced a smile. "Yeah, good news." But the smile did not reach his eyes. The great storm that night, the sky turned black with swirling clouds. The wind rose until it screamed like 1,000 voices. The storm was worse than any before. The ice cracked around the wreck, snow buried their path, and the walls shook as if the planet itself wanted to swallow them. Inside the broken ship, Ethan secured every panel while Leora pressed her hands against the hull, glowing faintly as she reinforced weak spots with her energy. "This storm," she whispered, "is stronger than I have ever felt. If it breaks the ship, we will be lost." Ethan clenched his teeth. "Then we hold it together. Whatever it takes." For hours they fought against the storm. Cables snapped, ice slammed into the walls, and the generator flickered on and off. Ethan's arms ached from hammering repairs, his face raw from frost. Leora dimmed again and again, forcing Ethan to hold her close between tasks so she could steal his warmth before giving more of her own energy to the failing ship. At last, near dawn, the storm eased. The wreck groaned but still stood. Exhausted, Ethan collapsed beside Leora, both of them too tired to speak. Her glow was faint, almost invisible, but her hand clung to his. The fragile bond. When Ethan woke later, Leora was staring at him quietly. Her silver eyes reflected the dim lights of the ship. "You risked yourself," she said softly. "Every moment of that storm you thought of me before you thought of you." Ethan sat up slowly. "Of course I did. You wouldn't have made it otherwise." She tilted her head, her glow flickering. "Why? You could have saved yourself. You could have let me fade." Ethan met her gaze, steady and firm. "Because you're not just some visitor. You're my partner. We've faced all this together. I wasn't about to lose you." Her glow brightened slowly as if his words filled her with light. She leaned closer, whispering, "When I return to my people, they will not believe this. They do not understand humans. But I see your strength. Your fire, I will tell them." Ethan's chest tightened. He knew she spoke the truth. But he also knew that when her people arrived, she would leave, and he would stay. The final repair. The weak signal from Leora's people grew stronger each day. To guide them in safely, they needed to finish repairing her ship's beacon. But the core component, the energy crystal, was cracked. Leora studied it with dimming light. "It cannot be fixed. It must be replaced. But I can shape part of my own energy into a crystal. It will cost me much, but it will call them here." Ethan frowned. "If you give too much, you'll weaken again. You might not survive." She placed her hand gently over his. "If I do nothing, they cannot find me, and I will fade here anyway. This is the only way." Ethan wanted to argue, but he saw the resolve in her silver eyes. She was ready to sacrifice for her people, and he could not stop her. Together, they worked. Ethan held the crystal steady while Leora placed her glowing hands over it. Streams of light flowed from her body, pouring into the cracked surface. The crystal pulsed brighter, humming with power. But Leora staggered, her glow flickering dangerously. Ethan caught her as she collapsed against him. "Enough!" he shouted. "Stop before it kills you," she whispered weakly. "It is done. The beacon will shine." The crystal glowed steadily now, its pulse strong enough to reach the stars. But in Ethan's arms, Leora was dim and fragile, her energy nearly drained. Ethan's anguish for days afterward. Ethan cared for her like she had once cared for him. He wrapped her in every blanket, kept the heaters high, and never left her side. She was too weak to stand, often slipping into long silences where her glow barely flickered. Ethan felt helpless. He had survived storms, predators, and loneliness, but watching her fade was harder than all of it. One night, as he held her close, she whispered faintly, "Ethan, if I do not rise again, do not grieve. You gave me warmth when I had none. You showed me light I had never seen. That is enough." Ethan shook his head fiercely. "Don't talk like that. You're not leaving me. Not like this." Her hand trembled against his chest. "Then promise. You will not let my people look down on you." Promise you will show them what humans are. Ethan swallowed hard, his throat tight. I promise. But you're going to tell them yourself. You hear me? You're going to make it. The beast returns as if fate wanted to test them one last time. The ground trembled again. The predator had returned. The ice cracked outside, the wall shook, and a monstrous groan filled the air. Ethan grabbed his torch and flare gun, his heart racing. He looked at Leora, still weak and barely glowing. Stay here. I'll deal with it. Her silver eyes widened. No, alone you will fall. I have to, Ethan said firmly. If it gets inside, neither of us survives. He stepped outside into the howling cold. The beast rose from the fissure, larger than before, its glowing mouth dripping frost. It had come for their warmth again. Ethan fired a flare straight into its face. The beast shrieked, thrashing against the ice. Ethan shouted at the top of his lungs, Come on then! Come for me! The creature lunged. Ethan dove aside, rolling across the ice. He fired again, hitting its armored hide. The flare sizzled but barely slowed it. The monster swung one massive limb, knocking him back. Pain shot through his side. Just as the beast reared for the final strike, a blinding glow erupted behind it. Leora stood at the wreck's entrance, her body shining brighter than ever before. She raised both hands, streams of heat and light bursting outward. The beast screamed as the wave of energy struck it. The ice cracked beneath its weight, and it toppled back into the fissure, vanishing into the dark. Ethan staggered to his feet, running to Leora. You shouldn't have... She collapsed into his arms, her glow faint once more. I could not let it take you, she whispered weakly. Ethan held her tightly, his chest aching. You saved me again. You always save me. The choice ahead. When the sky cleared, the beacon pulsed strong. Leora's people were coming. Rescue was certain now, but for Ethan, certainty brought no comfort. He sat beside her as she rested, torn between hope and dread. He knew she belonged to the stars, to her glowing people and their flame wells. Yet he also knew she had changed him forever, and perhaps, in some way, he had changed her too. As the beacon lit the frozen sky, Ethan whispered to himself, When they come, what will I be? Just the human who kept her alive? Or something more? He did not know the answer, but he knew the choice was coming, and it would decide not only their survival but the future of humanity among the stars. The beacon pulsed steadily, sending waves of light into the dark skies above the frozen world. Ethan watched from the wreck, Leora lying weak but glowing faintly beside him. The sound of engines echoed across the ice. The search vessel had arrived. Ethan's heart raced. After weeks of struggle, the waiting was over. Relief should have filled him, yet the thought of losing Leora made the ice in his chest tighten. Ethan, she whispered, her silver eyes soft but determined. They are here. Soon they will see what humans are. Ethan nodded. And I hope you tell them the truth about me. About us? She gave a faint smile, though her glow pulsed weakly. I will. The arrival. The alien ship descended slowly, its massive form reflecting the icy light. It hovered above the wreck, a sleek vessel covered in glimmering crystal plates. Ethan stepped forward with caution, unsure what to expect. A hatch opened and figures emerged. They were tall, crystalline like Leora, their bodies glowing with flowing energy. Their movements were precise and graceful. Their eyes, silver and bright, surveyed the surroundings carefully. Leora rose slowly, leaning on Ethan for support. They are my people, she said softly. The tallest among them approached, his glow brighter than the rest. Leora, he said in a voice that seemed to echo in the cold. You are found. But who is this human? Ethan swallowed hard. He straightened, trying to appear confident. I'm Ethan. I helped her survive. The aliens tilted their heads, examining him. Their eyes seemed to see into his very soul. Ethan felt small beneath their gaze. This human, the tallest one said finally. You claim to have kept her alive through storms and predators? Ethan nodded. Yes, I did everything I could. Leora stands up. Leora stepped forward, her glow brighter than before. They doubt you, Ethan, but I have seen what you did. You kept me alive when the cold and danger were against us. You gave me warmth. Without it, I would have faded. The tallest alien looked at her, then at Ethan. Interesting. You put yourself in danger to give energy to another? Ethan nodded. That's what humans do. We survive together. We care for each other. That's our strength. A murmur passed through the alien group. Leora's glow pulsed as she said, "This human is not weak. He is more than you might think. He is strong, brave, and clever. He helped me when no one else could." The tallest alien's eyes softened slightly. "Your words carry truth, Leora, perhaps. We underestimated humans." A test of humanity to confirm his claim, they asked Ethan to demonstrate his abilities. They led him to the frozen landscape outside the wreck. An enormous ice fissure threatened to collapse, trapping part of their ship. The aliens watched silently, expecting failure. Ethan examined the crack. "I can use these metal rods and cables to stabilize it temporarily." "But we'll need teamwork," the aliens murmured, doubtful. Leora touched Ethan's arm, her glow strengthening as she whispered, "We can do it together." With guidance from Leora and the aliens observing, Ethan climbed the ice carefully, driving rods into the frozen ground, securing cables, and improvising with human ingenuity. Slowly, the fissure stabilized. The ship's damaged section held against the pressure of the frozen world. The aliens stepped back, clearly impressed. Leora's glow pulsed brightly. "You see? Humans adapt, we endure. We survive against all odds," Ethan wiped his brow. "And we do it together. That's how we thrive." The tallest alien nodded slowly. "Perhaps humans are stronger than we imagined. Not in raw energy, but in resilience, creativity, and heart." Recognition, the alien leader approached Ethan. "You have given us proof, not with words, but with action. Leora has spoken of your warmth, your care, and your courage. We acknowledge your strength. Your species is worthy of respect." Ethan felt a swell of pride he had never known. He looked at Leora, whose glow shone like the rising sun. "You have changed how they see humanity," he whispered. "And you have changed how I see humanity." Leora replied softly, "You are more than a provider of warmth. You are a light in this cold universe." For the first time, Ethan understood that warmth was not just physical. It was compassion, courage, and the willingness to stand by others. That warmth, the essence of humanity, could be seen even by beings from distant worlds. The farewell. After days of repairs and assessments, Leora's people prepared to leave. Ethan and Leora stood together on the icy plateau, looking at the massive ship that would take her home. Ethan felt a hollow ache. "So this is it," she nodded, glowing faintly in the cold wind. "Yes, my people are safe now and I can return to them, but I will carry what you have given me. Your warmth, your strength, your courage." He stepped closer, taking her hands in his. "You'll tell them? About me, about humans?" "I will," she said firmly. "They will see us differently because of you. Because of what you showed me." For a long moment, neither spoke. The wind whipped around them, but inside the glow of Leora's light, the cold seemed to vanish. Then, softly, she whispered the words he had heard so many nights before. But now they felt different, hopeful, enduring. "Do not forget your warmth. I will remember it always." Ethan swallowed hard, the emotion heavy in his chest. "I won't, and I will remember you too." She gave a small smile. "Perhaps our paths will cross again. Ethan, in the stars, in the warmth of life, we will meet again." Humanity's worth as the alien ship lifted from the ice. Ethan watched the world grow smaller beneath him. Leora's glow was the last thing he saw before the vessel vanished into the sky. The silence of the frozen world returned, but it felt different now. He was not alone in spirit. He had proved something beyond survival. Humanity had worth. Humanity had courage, creativity, and compassion that even distant alien civilizations could recognize. Ethan returned to his habitat with renewed determination. The machines, the repairs, the lonely nights, they were all part of a bigger picture. Humans were not just fragile beings clinging to life. They were lights in the darkness, warmth in the cold, capable of great deeds in impossible circumstances. And somewhere among the stars, Leora would carry that truth. He smiled faintly as he looked at the flickering lights of the outpost, the aurora above and the silent ice stretching endlessly. A warmth spread through him, one that had nothing to do with heaters or blankets. It was the warmth of life, of courage, of humanity recognized, and he knew, deep inside, that no matter how cold the universe could become, humans would endure, they would survive, they would shine. And sometimes, just sometimes, the warmth of one human could save another, not just from the cold, but from despair itself. The stars above glittered silently, distant and vast. Yet across that vastness a bond remained, a human and a Seraph, connected forever by trust, courage, and the warmth that had changed everything. In the silent ice of the planet below, Ethan felt it clearly. Humanity had left its mark on the universe, and Leora had carried it with her, shining brighter than any beacon in the dark. And for the first time in months, Ethan felt truly alive.